Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Varda here with the continuation of our Tomb King campaign. At the end of the last episode, we had just lost High Queen Khalida in the battle for Lamia. But at the start of this episode, Khalida will be returning to duty, having been out for 4 turns injured, because during this time I have upgraded our settlements, replenished our army, which was heavily damaged, and she's back. So, as it's a Khalida campaign, that serves our purposes very well. But as we've just rolled over this turn, we have been given a decision. A Tomb Prince, Necrotect, and Lich Priest enter your throne room and offer themselves in your service. Now, this is an interesting decision because we have a Lich Priest, we can sort of move that to one side. But a Tomb Prince is a much stronger melee combatant. He'll be there to reinforce the front line and in many ways would be more useful in terms of raw damage output. However, something I want to move into in the relatively near future is constructs. One of the great allures of the Tomb King army, the Tomb Scorpions, the Hyra Titans, the War Sphinxes, some of the most iconic Tomb King units. And those would benefit the most from having a Necrotect. So, I think we're going to make the gambit of picking up the Necrotect early. They'll be less useful in our immediate fights, but they'll pick up some levels, and when we start adding constructs to our armies, they should be more powerful and more able to empower and increase the utility and survivability of our construct units. So with that in mind, we are going to call upon the Necrotect, and I am going to call upon you to give me a name for the Necrotect down in the comments below. Now, you may be wondering why I haven't also named the Lich Priest, as I believe I asked you to give me a name for Hatmus in episode 1 as well. And that's because I've recorded these in bulk, so I haven't yet seen your comments, and this is the last one I'm going to record in bulk before the first episode gets posted, so hopefully by the next time you see Hatmus, he will have a new and fancy name. So, to catch you up on what we've done, we have begun upgrading Lamia. We've put some extra growth buildings in the Doom Glade and begun working on some walls. We've upgraded the Sepulchre to increase the unit capacity for carrying in case we want something fast, something that can shut down artillery, but also to keep the control in the region good, to keep the populace happy, because as we see on the control meter here, the happier the populace, the more beneficial things are, but also the more difficult they are to maintain. So, being able to boost that public order nice and quickly, keep it in a good, healthy spot, will not only help us jump up that tech tree, but it'll enable us to not worry about rebellion. And that is something that I quite enjoy. Not having to worry about rebellion sounds good to me. So, we are going to begin moving our Necrotect over to this army here. But you may notice that the army is full, and so we have a decision to make. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to kick this lord and say to them, you did a glorious job sitting in that settlement for a few turns, but it is time for the High Queen to resume her control. And once the High Queen is there, she is going to turn to the army and she's going to say, we need space for our Necrotect. And looking at what we've got, we've nice even numbers of spearmen, nice even numbers of archers. I think what we'll do is we'll keep the spearmen for the anti-large, and we will drop a unit of Nehekara warriors. This serves not only to open up a slot in this army, but it'll also allow us, when we get a second army, to put some Nehekara warriors in there, because we can only have a limited amount of special units, and we don't want our second army to be a complete pushover if it ends up being relied upon to defend us against any significant threats. So we're going to disband this unit of Nehekara warriors, and we're going to say to Sefko, go and join the High Queen's army, and he's going to offer us 10% movement speed base. And I'm actually a very big fan of 10% movement speed on the campaign map. That's going to help us get around to deal with the Arachnos, or we can see the Cornins nearby. The demons always like declaring war on you. We got some Skaven up to the north as well, and some lizards to the south. But we have now finished not only replenishing our army, but attaining control of our first province, which puts us in a position to begin our campaign in earnest, which means that we want to go and take a look at what the objectives of our campaign are. And we can see that in the victory conditions, for the short campaign victory, we would need to take out the Drakenhof Conclave, which would mean we would need to come over here, because it is on this coast, just, what's it called, Land of the Dervishes, just over the Shifting Sands, that Volkmar the Grim spawns, and slightly to the right of that, in the Shifting Sands, is where Manfred and the Drakenhof Conclave do spawn. So we could hop over the mountains and begin a push for that, but there's also another thing that we are going to want to focus on during our campaign, and this is the Books of Nagash. I'm trying to find where it shows them to us, because I haven't actually seen this before. The Books of Nagash, if we click on it, don't bring anything up, but essentially on the... there it is, at the top, the book icon. Here we go. Books collected 0 out of 8. And each book has a different effect that will empower our faction. So, the 7th Book of Nagash is the closest one to us, and if we can occupy the Lost Plateau, we will receive 10% research increase and 10 canopic jars a turn, which will be quite handy in terms of generating things we can do with the mortuary cult here. So I think that my first priority with this new found information about the location of the book is to take the fight into this mountain range here, and then strike down towards the book and claim the Book of Nagash. This will help us to unlock our dynasties faster. It will help us to empower our units on the tech tree faster, unlock other lords using canopic jars. All in all, it should be a nice way of getting us an increase in power early on, because we can just spawn that second lord when we buy him and have him sit with an army in our home territory free of charge, or move into other areas on the map as well. With that in mind, we are now going to end our turn. We're not going to move Khalida. Actually, yeah, we're going to move Khalida. I take that back. We're going to move Khalida here so that she can begin thinking about moving up to Granite Massif and Karag Orod, should we choose to do so. And Sefkot should be able to reach her next turn. It'll limit her movement a little bit, but heroes do move faster than lords, so hopefully we'll still be able to move just a little bit beyond Murak next turn. Oh goodness, right. Okay, so as we start the turn roll, As I said, the demons like declaring war, and it appears that we have drawn the ire of Scarbrand the Exiled. Over here, we can see that he's very unfriendly, but we can also see that they don't seem to pose a real threat to us, according to the campaign. But likewise, we don't seem particularly threatening to anyone else. So we can hope that Scarbrand won't come down immediately and try and beat the crap out of us, because we'd have a very hard time dealing with him. His army, we could deal with him. Yeah, that'd be interesting. The poison would help, but I reckon we might end up losing Khalida again if he makes a beeline for her and rampages her in combat. So, yeah, we can hope that the demons will keep to themselves. They often declare war almost as soon as they know you. Oh, Oric. Hello. What do you want? Oh, why couldn't it have been a nice non-aggression pack, Thoric? Why do you want me to beat the crap out of you? Okay, great. So we started by acquiring 2 new wars. Okay, this makes moving before we have a second lord in place to defend our territory a little bit more risky, and it also means that there are more threats that we might have to worry about. Now we can see that there is an 8-turn quest here to be at war with Clan Moors. It will give us 20 canopic jars if we complete it, which is what we would need to recruit the lord next turn when the dynasty finishes researching. But if we were to do it earlier than that, we could also gain ourselves 500 treasury. If we go to the diplomacy menu here, can we see where Clan Moors is, roughly? Well, they don't like us very much. Because we went to war with the vampires. They do actually like us for the sake of being Tomb Kings. Interesting. Clan Moors. I think Clan Moors spawns down here, past the lizards. So, I mean, okay, you know what? We're very unfriendly with you. Have at ye, rattykins! And that'll give us a little bit of extra treasury. It will give us the extra canopic jars, which is all well and good. So, over here at Resetra, we can further upgrade the Regnant Catacombs for some extra growth. So we're going to do that. We want to speed growth along. And yes, the other important thing I should mention is that we built a cavalry stables. I think I mentioned this, but if I didn't, the aim is so that we can begin to move to Sepulchral Stalkers and Necropolis Knights. These are going to be the fast-moving flanks of our army, the skirmishing forces on the vanguard, but they're also some of the I want to say more iconic units of the Tomb Kings. So I'm really excited to see when we can get those into our army. You can see that they have vanguard deployment and anti-large over on the left, but they're also armored and armor piercing, whereas I mean, I guess it's not important because we are playing Khalida, but these guys are armored and shielded, armor piercing, and have poison attack. So if you're not playing Khalida and you want a flank unit that can weaken the enemy it's fighting to give it an upper hand in those pesky flank skirmishes, then the Necropolis Knights are a good shout. Alright, so the turn has rolled over. We are going to move Nekov to Khalida. Nekov? Sefka? Oh, goodness me, I'm butchering that pronunciation. Alright, we have unlocked the great incantation of Petra. What does that incantation do? What do we have? We have this one, a unique Necrotect hero capable of colonizing ruins at level 3 will be summoned to your faction leader. That, if we saved up some money, would be a really good way of actually gaining a foothold in some of the territories by colonizing their capital immediately at level 3. That would save us a lot of time. So it's worth thinking about when we go to war and take over some of the other factions' capitals, that we might want to do this to build up our city. It looks like we also have access to the Great Incantation of Tahoth, which would give us a Casket of Souls. That would be a useful thing to add to the army. And the Great Incantation of Kassar. All regions belonging to you will be hit by sandstorms, causing attrition to foreign armies. We gain immunity to those sandstorms. We get 50% ambush chance and an active army ability. Okay, so that'll be useful if we're struggling getting attacked. Those are things to bear in mind that we might do throughout the campaign. I just wanted to highlight there. But as of right now, none of them are particularly useful to us. We're going to continue Khalida's march towards Granite Massif and end our turn there. The orcs here wanted on aggression pact with us. However, I'm going to say no, because taking their land would be quite useful for us. And, you know, our enemies are on either side of them, so we really don't want to enter into any sort of diplomatic relations with a faction that, quite honestly, isn't likely to be here for very long. Lost Tomb, Hidden Knowledge. During the excavation of one of our lord's tombs, a disaster occurred. The more we dug, the more sand poured into the breach, trapping our unfortunate workers inside and resealing the chamber. Is the loss of a few wretched labourers sufficient reason to dig elsewhere? Or should we persevere here and redouble our efforts? Ooh, now this is a tricky one, because canopic jars will be very useful and will generate more money throughout the campaign, but more treasury is also always nice. But I think, you know, they're skeletons. They died once. They can die again. We'll just bring them back. We're going to unearth the chamber. Okay, and as we reach the start of this new turn, we have the Wisdom of the Second Dynasty. We have unlocked an area of the tech tree and also the ability to recruit one extra army. We'll deal with that in a moment, because I want to highlight that on the turn roll, this small army of Khorne, one of Skarbrand's chosen, made its way past Karag Orud and into the mountains, making a beeline, it seems, for us and Granite Massif. So the first thing we're going to do on this turn is occupy Granite Massif. This is a change I'm a really big fan of. Previously, when you colonized, it would take a number of your troops and disperse them amongst the populace, which made a certain degree of sense, but it would also weaken your army, meaning that you would often just spend money recruiting an extra lord, walking them over, and it would take time, but it would, you know, allow your army to do more. Now, you'll have a one-turn Vigor in Battle Tired debuff, which will just make your troops a little bit less effective on the battlefield, but if you're not going to fight immediately, it is just the treasury cost of colonization. This makes it a lot more attractive to pick up ruins that have been left in the wake of characters such as Skarbrand, who like raising settlements rather than occupying them. Alright, so with the Wisdom of the Second Dynasty completing, we now have the ability to get ourselves a second army. And we are going to do that next turn, because I forgot that we have to research the Lord in order to unlock him. So we're going to research that Lord. We're going to go to Granite Massif, and we're going to build up crypts so that we can actually build things in this area. And then we shall see what Khorne's next move is. Are they going to dare to attack us? Probably not with these army sizes, but we'll see. And there he is, Rakash of the Second Dynasty. And we have another mission. Burrow and destroy, raise or sack the following settlements. Krad Tommen. It looks like I was wrong about where Queek spawned, by the way. because he appears to have spawned above me. I must have remembered an old spawn location. That is most unfortunate. So, what we're going to do is we are going to recruit Rakash of the Second Dynasty. The reason we've waited for a second army, well, one is because we needed to unlock the ability to recruit one, but also because with enough canopic jars, these guys make fantastic lords. I mean, just look at what this guy has to offer. +1 control all provinces. 5% income faction-wide. Character's leadership aura is 5 better than normal. His size is 20%, or leadership aura size is 20% better. He has a 5% ward save, just flat 5% damage reduction to all things, and a passive ability called the Curse, which we will read in just a moment when I have recruited him and am able to take a look at his details. Alright, what does the Curse do? Where is it? Here it is. Passive ability, direct damage in area, affects all enemies in range. If they have less than 50% of their hit points, they are going to be taking damage per second of 62 to 125. If we... It says usage 1, but it also says passive, so I wonder if there is an active element to this or not as well. We'll find out when we take him to the battlefield, but all in all, he has a superb setup compared to your average Tomb King Lord. So that's why we recruited him. With this army belonging to Clan Moors on our doorstep, there are a couple of things we are going to want to do. The first is, even though they likely won't complete, we are going to want to recruit Nekakara warriors, 4 archers, and a band of horsemen. We're going to start recruiting his army. Now, Lamia is a tier 2 settlement. It does have, because it is a capital, an impressive garrison. And that should be more than enough with the help of a lord to dispatch of this Skaven army. But we will see when the turn rolls if that is in fact the case. Now, before we attack the dwarves, I think it might be prudent of us to secure our border by disposing of the orcs to the north. The problem with that, of course, is that it does leave us a little bit more vulnerable to Scarbrand, because we would have a settlement right here. However, to offset that, if we were to get enough money to do the Great Incantation of Petra, we could, before we take it, colonize it at tier 3 and put our money into building up some walls and a good garrison there. I haven't yet decided, so while I think about that, we are going to take a look at what we have here that we can research. We have Bone Edifice, which is 15 armor for skeleton archers and horsemen, and 10 missile strength for the same, and some upgrades to Bone Giants. I think we're going to go with this one because more ammunition is nice, and it will definitely help. But they're only 2 turns each, and I think the immediate damage boost is probably the best place to go here. Alright, with the orcs being out of position, I think we are going to march on Karag or Rud. We're going to declare war on them. It's a shame because they were friendly, but quite frankly, they are in the way of my success. And this we will not tolerate. Alright, we have begun our deployment. We've set up in this sort of tight group over here where there are slightly less towers shooting at us. We have a wide front of infantry ready to approach, and our horsemen at front just to sort of absorb some tower fire and do some shooting, because they're not going to be the most useful thing once we get inside the settlement. Now, unlike in the previous battle where we were fighting zombies and fellow skeletons, it would be fair to say that our infantry here is at a bit of a disadvantage. We do have Nikakara warriors, which are better than the skeletons we had previously, but orcs are big, they're tough, they're good combatants, and so they will, regardless of how good our skeleton infantry is, fare better than our previous opponents. However, there are less of them, they don't have regeneration, and so they will be a lot more vulnerable to archer fire and spells. So, let's get this show on the road. We're going to immediately order the Nehekara warriors to the wall. We're sending them up first because basically the spearmen are only here to deal with trolls and to begin moving in to the settlement as extra reinforcements on areas of the wall we can't really get to. We're going to move up our archers so that they can begin returning fire and trading back some damage. We've got the catapults focusing on the gate, so we're going to move Khalida forwards. Again, she's not going to go on her own this time. We learnt our lesson, didn't we, Varda? Well, I should hope so. But we're going to move our Lich Priest, who did get a horse at the end of the last battle. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last episode, but he has a fancy steed. And our Necrotect. We're going to send the Necrotect up onto the walls because he is an anti-infantry character. So he should have a reasonable amount of strength against orcs, and also just a big tanky health pool. We're going to move the Ushpati archers forward, but I doubt there'll be much use for them here. We can see now that the arrows are beginning to arc back into the settlement, hitting the orcs as they scramble to redeploy on the walls. The artillery barrage continues to test the strength of the orcish gate, with this awesome dwarven settlement motif going on here. Absolutely love it. The arrows aren't being the most effective purely because, they're on the wall, but we're doing a good enough job of weakening them because down here, the skeletons are beginning the assault. Ascending to the walls. Goodness me, that was some awful camera control, I do apologize. And taking the fight to the orcs. Switching back to this sort of macro view with the banners on for a second, we can see that we haven't taken that much damage. We have gained the walls, and the gates are about to go down, and that is the signal for Khalida and the remaining spearmen to enter the settlement. We have the same problem that we did last time, in that although our Lich Priest has gotten more powerful because he did some fighting in the last battle, we still don't have any winds of magic. I re-rolled them at the start, and we started with a very low number, which has gone up to 19, so it's not quite as bad as before, where we just straight up didn't have any of it regenerating, but it's still not ideal, to put it mildly. We're going to switch the focus of our archers and our catapults momentarily, and we are going to use the incantation of protection over here, because that will then grant us army-wide regeneration. Looking at the battle, we can see that there is no fight going on over here, which is good. So we're actually just going to throw the unit on the other side of the walls here. Some damage in a quick buff, and hopefully that will enable them to clear the wall more quickly. Now, Khalida and the spearmen appear to have gotten confused, but that's alright. We're just going to rally our troops down from the wall now. This shouldn't end up being quite as dramatic a blob as last time. That was horrifically done by me, and I do apologize, but I got a bit carried away talking about what was going on and not actually doing things. A lesson learnt for future episodes. We're going to continue the archer fire here, and we are going to march these archers here a little bit closer to the city. Not too much, but we don't need them firing right now, so we'll get them into range to continue with any follow-up. Let's get the Nehekara warriors here down off the walls, as well as the tomb guard. who are some amazing infantry. I don't know if I've shown you the model yet. I don't think I have. Look at these heavy shields and the gilded metal hanging off of those bones. Lovely unit. Very, very nicely done by the folks over at Creative Assembly who did make the game. We're going to try and close into range of the Orc Boys and also the Orc Arrow... the Goblin Archers, not the Orc Arrow Boys. They are in a different location. I should get my unit names correct. But we can also see that down here the fight is not going as well. Our horsemen are getting a little bit shredded, so we are going to have to send some forces down here to reinforce them. And there is a unit of spearmen, a Nehekara warrior, and my Necrotect, who I have been neglecting this whole time. Oh, silly Varda, what have you done? Looking down at this fight, we can see that the trolls are engaged with Khalida and the Nehekara warriors. They're not winning, but there is enough of us combined with Khalida, I think, at this point, and we can use our Lich Priest's incantations. Perhaps the Overcast incantation of Vengeance would be or not an Overcast, we can't afford it, but an incantation of Vengeance might be in order. Oh, and that has begun to do a decent amount of damage per second, just helping us there. We see that the Realm of Souls heal went off. That's what the green glowing effects were just a moment ago. And that the Troll's leadership, low as it always has been well and truly broken. We're going to pursue them with Khalida and the Lich Priest. We're going to continue funneling the Nehekara warriors into the city, because I think at this point, the battle is all but won. It's a matter of Nogrod versus High Queen Khalida, and Khalida is not one for losing today. Having had to be reconstructed and embalmed, she is not looking forward to the prospect of making the same mistakes again, and I suspect she'll be much more diligent with her positioning in the future. Over here, we can see that the battle has been won. They have been shattered. The archers are firing some of their last shots into them now. And over here, the last vestiges of the Orc resistance lie with their Goblin Chieftain, who is firing off some magics, but I suspect that the magics on their own will not be enough. We can see that they do actually have one full health unit of Orc Arrow Boys left that I didn't see. So we're going to begin moving some forces over to them. And actually, it looks like our Lich Priest. Look at him go. What a courageous fellow this Lich Priest is. Is taking some tower fire and engaging this unit of Arrow Boys all on his own. Just in case, I think we're actually going to pull him out. I really don't want to have him die in the same way that Khalida did in the last battle, because he won't come back. He is not immortal, unlike Khalida. And I think at this point we'll get a couple of nice cinematic close-ups of Khalida battling this Goblin Chieftain while the fight happens. Oh, what a dive! What a roll! Oh, Khalida is a force to be reckoned with. These orcs don't know what hit him. I'm gonna throw in a quick Venom wave just to break their morale and order her forward. That diving roll trick she's gotten quite accustomed to. And I think we might just have seen the end of the battle as their leader did break. Oh no! He didn't break, he's just running. Well, keep chasing, Khalida. And we will send our forces here to deal with the last couple of units that the orcs do have to offer. At this point, I'm going to speed the battle up because there's not much left to see. It's all but over. Once those trolls go down, the Orc Arrow Boys are exposed. We're going to take a little bit of damage, but the mass rout will come in soon enough. And there it is. We have taken Karag Arud and secured ourselves another province. This province is probably going to be hotly contested for a little while, but we'll talk about that when we return to the main campaign map. And a decisive victory. We did lose a unit of skeleton warriors, probably due to me being a bit of a twit and leaving them to get slaughtered on the wall over on the right-hand side. But that's alright, that's not too bad. We can replace them relatively easily. And we could even replace them with something new if we wanted to dip into the global recruitment pool, but I don't think we've got quite enough income for that just yet. So, we shall take our reward, 2000 DXP, for High Queen Khalida, don't mind if I do, and we will occupy this settlement for its 30 canopic jars and whatever buildings we can put within it. The reason that I think that this will likely be a difficult place to hold is simply because of its geography. We talked about this earlier. We've got the dwarves over here in this sort of, I'm going to say, southeasterly position. And we have the southeasterly? No, southwesterly position. My apologies. Goodness me, look at me making mistakes. And then we have Scarbrand up here in the sort of northern position. So we are going to likely be fighting on quite a few fronts. We've got the Skaven there, and we're under threat in this mountain range of the Devil's Backbone. But we will see that in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time, as always. If you have enjoyed this episode, please do throw the video a like. It helps with the algorithm. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.